Welcome to the Business Leadership Series, where we engage with leaders who are making an impact on their worlds and who want to share their knowledge and experience for your personal and professional growth. The following interview is designed to inspire you to become the best leader you can be. Your host, Derek Champagne, is the founder and CEO of The Artist Evolution, a full-service agency building successful brands, marketing tools, and campaigns, and also the author of the best-selling book, Don't Buy a Duck. And now, let's begin today's Leadership Series interview.
Welcome to the Business Leadership Series, where our goal is to inspire you to become the best leader that you can be. Our guest today, partner of Global Private Partners Ltd. He's the author of two books, The Great Business Shape-Up and The $1 Million Payday. Murray Priestley, welcome to the program today.
Thank you, Derek. Very great to be here with you, and hopefully I can share some really good information for everybody.
I'm excited to talk with you. You are a partner of Global Private Partners, private equity investment firm based in Hong Kong. Since 1988, you've been providing executive level management to a range of businesses, working from in-depth understanding of financial markets, information technology, and customer service, and then you've bridged the gap between strategy and operational requirements. Natural leader, and you act as a catalyst for rapid growth and execution. Tell me a little bit about, we'd like to start with your early days and then what got you to where you are today. Just kind of give us a brief history about you.
Sure. No, I'd be very glad to. In fact, that introduction, I guess, that shows I've just got a lot of grey hair and seen a lot of things over my time. But look, I guess I got really started in IT outsourcing, and which is outsourcing, which is the ability to be able to provide services, full end-to-end services for companies. And in this case, it was a very big company based out of Dallas in Texas, EDS. You may have heard of Ross Perot.
Yes.
So when I joined the company, I was there for 10 years, and I learnt a lot about systemization, which really made that company successful. Albeit that company is no longer around. It got assumed by General Motors and then got acquired by Hewlett-Packard. But nevertheless, it really started IT outsourcing, and that just led from for all the companies that I've worked with going forward since then have all been on the sort of outsourcing business, buy the business, fix the business, sell the business.
Yeah, I love that. And a lot of businesses don't have a succession plan. We see so many small businesses. Now we're going to talk about some online business today as well. But we've seen so many small businesses that just don't have a plan. And it dies with the owner, or the business ends with the owner. I love that you're being forward thinking on this, and so I want to talk to you a little bit about. And our focus today is your $1 Million Payday book. Comes from the perspective of a private equity investor. That's you, and then we want to look at some questions like, how do you look at business to buy? What are hidden values that we should be looking for? Why don't you dig into the book and some of the content that we can expect, and just kind of walk us through some of the highlights that our listeners can expect when they engage with this book.
Sure. Look, I guess the reason for putting it together is that, as we said before, we're constantly seeing people that are looking to sell their business, specifically their online business. And, we have a particular way that we look at a business and the things that we do as part of due diligence, to go and figure out whether this is a business worth buying. And obviously, from my perspective, I'm looking to buy them cheap. So, there's a pretty set things that we look for. And as a result, in talking to some people that we didn't purchase their business, they said, well, how could we improve what we're doing? And I said, well, okay, if I was in your shoes, here's what I'm looking for. Go fix those things.
Right.
And so just do 180 degrees on these things, and look, there's a really good chance that you will simply improve the value of it straight away. I guess that's the simple version. That's how the book came to be. And look, it's not a long book. It's short, sweet, and to the point. But it pretty much has if you like, a plan of how we look at a business, and then it flips it around and says, okay, well, go do this. Go Go focus on these things.
That's great. That's so valuable, and that's something a business owner really needs to see. There would be nothing worse than getting to the point where you're trying to sell and then finding out that it's not of value to your prospective buyer. So give us a couple examples. Give us a couple highlights of the types of things that you've seen that have been flags for sale. I mean, obviously you want to get the best price that you can. That's the business that you're in. But give us some examples of what people have done or things that they could tweak that were obvious problem areas that you found.
Well, I'll give you an example. There's one company that we looked at, and we ended up not buying it. So it's I can kind of talk about it. But they had an email list of over 400,000 subscribers, and they'd never emailed them once.
Wow.
Now, most people listening to this, us talk now, would be sitting there scratching their head saying, "What? How could that possibly be?"
Right.
But the people, if you start your business, you kind of get all consumed, and sometimes it's stressful. A lot of small business owners would say most of the time it's stressful, right. And you kind of get focused on just doing certain things, and you kind of don't see other things. And that's where an agency such as yours, you come along and you say, look, we're thinking about doing this, and then you guys go and have a look at that business and say, well, have you thought about this?
Right.
Because it's obvious to you because you're not in the business.
Right.
And then everybody goes, oh, that's a good idea. And so I guess we see that all the time. We are not in their business. And so, for example, a lot of businesses that, let's say you've got staff. Let's say you've got a team of, 8 to 10 people. So that you're a half reasonable business. Most of the time, the average staff member has no clue as to what the actual direction the owner wants to take for the company. Because there's no communication, or there's very little communication. And so if you get everybody focused on doing the one thing, everyone's pointed in the same direction, then everybody performs better. And the whole company lives as a result. But again, owners are not necessarily the best communicators.
Right.
So it's simple things like that, systemization, or the lack of systems. Again, a lot of online businesses don't employ a lot of staff. Maybe they've got 1 or 2 VAs, or I don't like the term VA, but definitely having some work outsourced.
Right.
Or they find it difficult to explain to that person what is it that they want to have done. Whereas we come at it from the perspective of, well, you've just got to have systems documented from day one, because your whole job in the company is to make yourself redundant, if you think of it that way.
Absolutely. And that vision from the owners is critical for your team to understand where the direction is and to know where you're going. If you're not able to explain it to somebody else on your team, if you're not able to explain it to a VA, then that's a pretty obvious sign that you're not going to be able to transfer the value to somebody that's looking to buy.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of the things, of course, that if you're looking to, if I saw a company that had fantastic systems, that to me says we probably aren't going to add that much value. So we would tend not to buy them. However, that's what you've got to understand perspective. I'm looking to buy them cheap. Whereas another person who, say, wants to buy themselves an online business that's got good positive cash flow, they don't want to know how to run the business, really. Most of the time, if you could say, hey, this whole business is run by a team of 3 people that are sitting over here, and all you do is watch and kick off some new marketing campaigns, then that's a good business to buy because it's a cash machine.
Right.
So you just got to look at the perspective of the buyer.
Talk to me. That's great advice. And it seems obvious, but you see it all the time. You wrote a book about it, and we see it often in our business as well when we go in and help businesses be more intentional with their marketing and with their systems and their communication. I looked at doing buying a company last year, and what ended up falling through was a similar deal is the lists weren't used correctly, the marketing wasn't set up properly, and it wasn't a good fit for us at the end of what we were buying. There just wasn't enough worth and value to it. Tell me about specifically about the mail list example. Tell me about why it's so important, other than the obvious cross-selling and ongoing customer retention and communication, but why was there so much value when you looked at that they had not used their list?
Well, I kind of think of it like an iceberg. If you think of the tip of an iceberg, the old Titanic story, I guess, that the iceberg looks quite a small little mountain on the top, but underneath there's a huge amount of ice underneath the sea. And so, from what we see, a lot of businesses rely on one or two products in the online space. They're busy selling and trying to get a first-time customer. And that's the tip of the iceberg. Once you've got the first-time customer, that person is highly likely to buy from you again. They're highly likely to refer you to other people if you provide a good service. And I just make the assumption that you've got a great product and you provide great service. So that whole understanding of how can I then tap into my existing customers? How can I get referrals? How can I get the part of the ice that's under the sea? And that's where an email list comes in. Facebook pixeled audiences.
Right.
Everything that you can do to provide, communicate and talk to the people who have bought from you, because they one person may well buy 3 or 4 more things from you over a period of a couple of years.
And you're so right. They are more likely to buy. The probability of them, because they've already entrusted in your brand and are already utilizing your goods. And that's such a great point. We see companies often that are then always in new customer acquisition mode, which is important, but many times the existing customer gets neglected. And I talk about this often, but depending on your niche and your industry, there sometimes are a finite amount of new customers that you can even outreach to effectively. So you want to make sure definitely that you're taking care of your existing customers as well.
Yeah, people spend a lot of money on that first-time customer. They spend all their money just to get that first person. And, that's all good. However, unless you're, getting if you've spent $1 to get the first customer, well, you could probably spend 20 cents to get the next 4 customers related to the person who just bought from you. So the marketing is way cheaper, way more effective.
Yeah, that's great. So talk to us. One of your interview topics that you talk about sometimes is doubling the value of your online business. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, a couple of basic things around doubling. If you understand margin, so you understand that you've got in online world, you've got all these different measures, and again, that's one of the things you see. Well, actually, it's missing from pretty much most businesses we have a look at is just a dashboard of metrics that actually telling you what's happening. What is the history of margin on that product? What is the history of pricing on that product? What's the sales velocity? What therefore you can tweak the things that are going on. But the fastest way to actually grow in the Amazon FBA world or in the Shopify world is simply just to pour some gasoline on your marketing. If you know what your margin is,
right,
then increase your marketing just so you're still breaking even, but give it the beans. And if you're pretty much as a telltale sign, if you give it the beans and you don't sell more, then you probably don't have a longevity in that particular product. But if you've got margin, dollar margin, then give it the beans, get some velocity, then inch your price back up again, and you should be sitting at a much better. We do that to some products, and we're seeing 300% gain in 30 days, but just by knowing the margin. And again, a lot of people don't know what the margin is. And I just mentioned before dollar margin as a percent as opposed to percent. So if you're selling a cheap product, like a $10 product, then if it's cost you $2 and you don't really have a lot of money left in dollar terms.
Right.
Whereas if you're selling a $100 product that say cost you $20, so it's the same in percentage, but you've got sort of $80 to play with. Obviously there's fees and on selling fees and everything else that comes out of it, but you've got a lot more dollars to spend, and that will buy you more marketing.
Absolutely. So do you have a formula? I talk in my book about some formulas for what percentage to spend on marketing. I'd love to hear your perspective on what is a measurement someone can do to feel confident that they're not being too risky with the allocation of what percentage they're putting back into that marketing spend.
We'd love to see an ongoing product have an ACOS, or an advertised cost of sale, of about 30%. But we quite happily spend 80 to 100 in order to give it the beans, as I say. So, I guess the person who can spend the most on marketing wins.
Right.
So so we definitely, we understand what the total mix of the products are, and then what margins, what's selling, what's not selling. We kind of work it out quickly and then go spend as much as we can on boosting the sales velocity of those individual products, and then just sort of manage it from there.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think that spend is important. Obviously, as a marketing guy, I'm going to recommend that. But I've also seen people burn through their marketing budget, placing it incorrectly. So what you're saying is important: to understand your matrix, to understand your customer, to understand what's selling. Any other tips or tools that you use for that, or formulas for someone to be confident when they're doing that spend, that they're putting it in the right place?
Okay, well, the team of guys that we've got that run that part obviously know all the details of it. So, I might get this one wrong, but I definitely know that we spend a lot of time daily on pay-per-click advertising, both on Facebook and within the Amazon platform, within Google Display Network, etc. And they spend a lot of time eliminating keywords that aren't selling.
Right.
And then putting negative keywords. So end up finding out, what are customers telling us from their typing in on, what are they searching for, and what are they actually telling us that allows us to do better marketing. So, if they're looking and finding our product and then not buying it, well, we know whatever they're searching for, those things aren't working. So quickly switch them off. Don't waste too much time on it. And then obviously pour more money into the keywords, key phrases that are actually working. Kind of goes without, you would think that's obvious to most people, but it isn't.
You're so right. You would think it's obvious, and it's not. And oftentimes in an audit, we'll see that it has not been done that way. And we'll also see that someone will say, well, the display network wasn't working, or this particular Facebook campaign wasn't working, but they haven't checked it either. So when's the last time that you looked at it? Well, we set it up 6 months ago. What you're talking about is so right. I got to laugh there. Correct. You've got to be. You're monitoring it daily, and the negative keywords is really important as well. And then putting more on what's working. That's so formulaic, and it makes sense. You're right. That's why I love having guests like you on. That really just it's simple. It makes sense. But a lot of us need to hear that.
Yeah. Look, the next big thing that we do operationally is we split test everything. And again, I'm not sure your audience probably knows what split testing is.
Why don't you talk us through it anyway? I mean, the A/B split testing for your ads, but give us a little bit of detail about how you do that.
So yeah, so we always have at least two versions of everything. So whether it is an ad, or whether it is a landing page, a funnel like a pre-sale page, everything that we can possibly test on the way through, we are constantly testing. And as a net result is that you see quantum improvement. Statistically, we would want at least 200 times where people have clicked on something to tell us, whether, out of the 200 times that there was a click, did they click on A or did they click on B? And based on that, we will constantly change it. So whichever one is losing, we will stop. We will then put a new version on, and then try and beat the current one. And you see that in pay-per-click advertising. You see it in just in headlines, in images. I mean, in the online world, images are king, and then headlines. You probably have. Many of your clients and listeners have probably played around with the Amazon world. There's a whole focus on throwing in keyword stuffed titles and keyword stuffed descriptions. Well, every single time we have split tested that against a human written title and a human written description, the human wins all the time.
Okay.
We've never had a keyword stuffed title win. So I know there's some people out there talking about, running their tools and reverse engineering and finding out what keywords are working and then, making sure that they're stuffed into the title. That just doesn't work.
Right.
So we kind of laugh. I don't really care what others are saying necessarily, but we just go with what the data's telling us because it's customers are telling us this is what they prefer. And you can't really argue with that.
That's great. And, another thing I like from your approach, and obviously it's the industry you're in, but so many of us small business owners and the creative departments and et cetera, and the team get attached to their creative. And so sometimes they let the emotionally driven angle have them keep a piece of art or an ad out longer than it should be. And you really are just A/B testing, and there's not that emotional connection. It's really all about getting the best optimization and performance, and that's really important.
We are doing emotional ad testing. If you consider that the average person is really just a skin bag full of emotions, so when they're searching online to buy a product, when they look at the product, it elicits an emotion from them. This is kind of a little bit woo-woo, I guess, but so we split test at least 7 different emotions inside of ads. So we are looking to, on the creative side of, let's go with a humorous type ad. Let's go with I don't want to give it away as to how many, there's at least 7 emotions that we're playing with. But we're trying to tap into what is the emotion that people mostly feel and like when they look at that product. And it might be pride, it might be related to that they always buy this as a gift, therefore they are feeling grateful. So we play with the text, the creative, to try and tap into that. And that's one of the kind of secrets of how some of our ads work so well.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's something I study often and just want to continue to learn more from experts like you. So have you seen, I was curious, with either playing off of positivity, affirmations, humor, comfort, have you seen that work better than using the kind of negative tone, negative emotion? If you miss out on this can affect your family. Have you seen that worked as well? I mean, I was curious about that. That's come up a lot for us recently on some ads.
Look, at the end of the day, the answer is I can't tell for sure, but I can believe in the data. Right. So my educated guess is that it depends on the product, but we just split test everything, and very quickly you'll find out whether they work or not.
I love that. I mean, you're letting the data tell you. You're testing and letting the data tell you. You got to have thick skin or be detached from that part of it. You ever get connected to a product or to your advertisements in a way that gives you a bias to it, or you just let the data always run and the results always run your decisions?
Completely 100% data driven.
Yeah, it's so important.
Look, it's one of the things, when we've one of the companies that we first bought, they spent a lot of money on creative on the packaging. So they had beautiful packaging, and they completely sell 100% online. And so, we look at that and go, well, that's a complete waste of money. If they, let's say that this is probably close to the truth actually, where the unit cost of the product was say $4.40, but they'd spent $2.50 on packaging. And so we know that at the end of the day, people don't buy the package; they're buying the product. There's not even a photo of the package on the listing.
Wow.
So long as the box doesn't look like it's just a cheap cardboard box, a standard box is fine. That once the customer gets the product, they take it out of the box and throw the box away.
Right.
So there's extra margin that we know we've got going forward. And so, yes, people can fall in love with creative, they can fall in love with their product, none of which help you.
Right. But we often put so much time and energy into that part of the business, and instead of focusing. I say I'm just going through a sample of I've reviewed over 1,000 brands in the last decade, and I see some common challenges in that, and sometimes that's one of them, is either putting the wrong focus or not understanding where to put their time to be most productive.
Look, this. I guess I've got to be careful here, knowing the business you're in. But and I did this myself, many years and years ago. I fell in love with developing the best business card. As a company that I wanted to position myself out there. So I spent all this time and effort on coming up with the best business card. And you know what? As long as your business card says your name and your phone number and your website, everything else people don't really care about.
Right.
And it took grey hair and old age to figure out that that's not what people want. So Don't spend as much time on it. Now, that said, there is a lot of worth in having a logo that makes sense, that's not overly complicated, because it's that first 2 seconds of when somebody looks at your stuff. Is it sort of repulsing them, or is it saying, okay, you guys are professional, now I'm looking at the products?
Right.
So
yeah, if you don't want it to be a barrier to, you want to overcome objections as quickly as possible. You had mentioned our video, so some of the doing a brand video, it's really so that it builds a trust quickly, so that we can get to the core of the conversation of a relationship about the service or the product, and just get the intro relationship out of the way as quickly as possible. Let's establish trust and let's move on. And so that's the value that we see sometimes in having your materials or your video match the quality that you want to be perceived as.
Yeah, and I think in positioning, again, most businesses are positioning themselves as the hero of their story, when in fact they're the mentor of their story. And so if you think your customer, will already see themselves as the hero, so they're wanting to buy the product or the service because it will help them achieve some journey.
Right.
If you think of it in those terms. So they're only going to buy that, or they're only going to take advice from a mentor. They don't want to take advice from another hero. There's a conflict of interest. So understanding buyer behavior and buyer psychology is really, I think, is key. And the best way to do that is to look at the data.
Yeah. That's great. It all keeps coming back to the data, and I love that. We've got just another minute or two, and I want to ask you a few other questions, and then we'll share about your book. But are there any new exciting marketing tools or any technology you're excited about that are aiding you in your business or in your marketing endeavors?
Look, there is, and I constantly have the team, share some videos and share some of the latest bits and pieces. And what I see happening in Facebook just blows my mind. What you can do in targeting an audience is just, you would think it should be illegal. It's this. I guess it comes back to that, the big data mining and what they call big data. That if you've got a lot of data points about how people behave, then you can make some pretty smart decisions. And I do know that the Google Display Network is catching up really quickly. And not so much Google AdWords. Again, when people type in on Google, they're looking for information. Whereas if people type into Amazon, they're looking to buy something. And so the data that those search engines, what they spit out is different. Now, Facebook, people aren't looking to buy something on Facebook. So when you put an ad in front of somebody, you've got to understand that they're not looking to buy, but they may well be interested. Right. But you can target so many people and so easily, it's just incredible. So that's kind of where a lot of our effort has been spent.
Absolutely. I love that. And we work on campaigns like that on a daily basis, and it's incredible how it continues to advance and get more refined in your ability to understand and reach your target, very niche targets. So tell me, is there any must-read book or resource that you've been involved in lately or have consumed, absorbed, and what would that be?
Well, as I'm standing up now looking behind me where my bookshelf is, for the average business owner, I think the lack of systems is really the killer. And the best book I've ever seen on that is called The Checklist Manifesto. I can't remember the guy who wrote it, I'm trying to find it actually somewhere. Must be on another shelf. But it's a book that kind of just teaches you the basics of how to look at what you're doing, and in a systematic way, and at the very least build a checklist. And so somebody else can then just go through that checklist and go, yep, I've done this step, I've done this step, I've done this step, I've done this step. That's why pilots have checklists. Now, pilots, hopefully are qualified enough to fly the plane, but they don't rely on them being lucky enough to remember everything on that day. Right. They make them follow checklists. Hospitals use checklists to make sure that they, wash their hands before they operate on you. Some things that sound simple, just everything is a lot better if you can follow a set process. Yeah. And that's kind of that's a great book. It's a great book.
Thank you so much. Is there anything final that you want to share with our listeners today?
Look, as we've talked about it, the book that I've got, it's a free book. It's on a website called 1mpayday.com, 1mpayday.com. It's just give us your email address and you can download the book. It's my perspective on what I would do if I was in your shoes and I was wanting to make the business more valuable so I can sell it. I talk about how is it that what things that I look for because I want to buy cheap. But then we do the 180 degree and say, well, let's go fix these things, and then we could sell expensive. And I think it'll help a lot of people.
Love it. I love your approach, your systematic approach, your A/B testing, looking at the numbers, being data-driven. Murray Priestley, thank you so much for being our guest today. I want to invite our listeners to download this free book. I'm going to do that right after the show. The number 1mpayday.com, 1mpayday.com. Murray, thanks again, and look forward to continuing to see the great things that you're doing.
Pleasure, Derek, and great talking with you, and hopefully your listeners will get something out of it, and they can come back to you for all that work that your agency does.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Murray. You take care.
Alrighty, see you now.
You've been listening to the Business Leadership Series, where we engage with leaders who are making an impact on their worlds and who want to share their knowledge and experience for your personal and professional growth. This interview was designed to inspire you to become the best leader you can be.